Okay, we start to record now. So let me. Uh,
It does indicate that we're in a practice session.
no, so I will stop that. We start now. Welcome and thank you for joining. My name is Solange Patarroyo. I'm the health educator for community health and Atlantic Health System. Today, Healthy Living for Your Brain and Body is from the last research webinar is presented by Robin Kahn. Before we begin, I have a few announcements. This webinar is being recorded. All participants are mute. If you have a question, please use the Q&A for question or chat for comments. We will try to get through all questions at the end of the presentation. Are you or loving and interested to the smoking cessation? Atlantic Health System offer a free quit smoking program. This program includes an individual assessment, free nicotine replacement, and product on 6-week group meetings to help you quit and stay smoking free. They are a person or virtual programs, and we have a multiple days and times. For information about these groups and other resources or For additional days and times, please call 1-844-472-8499. And now I'm going to turn to over Robin and Terrina.
Thank you so very much, Solange, and thank you very much to Atlantic Health and the community for hosting our program today, Healthy Living for Your Brain and Body. I'm Robin Cohn. I'm the Director of Programs and Services for the Greater New Jersey chapter of the Alzheimer's Association. And I'm also a research champion, so I get the pleasure of talking about the latest advancements in the field as it relates to lifestyle interventions. Of interest before we get started, our 2023 Alzheimer's Association disease facts and figures were just released this month, early March. And we know today that more than 6 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's. We also know that the lifetime risk for Alzheimer's at age 45 is 1 in 5 for women and 1 in 10 for men. And as we turn the page and we take a look at our own state of New Jersey, we know that there are over 190,000 people currently with the diagnosis and over 372,000 caregivers that we know of that are providing care and support services for their loved ones. There's a lot that we could talk about today in relation to Alzheimer's disease and all related dementia. However, today's conversation is quite empowering. It'll provide us with some guidance, as well as some tools and resources for living our best life, whether it be on the journey of Alzheimer's and all related dementia, or certainly other conditions. And so what I'd like to just bring to your attention before we get started as well, is that our focus at the Alzheimer's Association is certainly on our overall mission. And, clearly that is to be the global leader in research, to drive risk reduction strategies and prevention strategies, and to deliver in our communities quality care and support services. What's very interesting in terms of a data point is that up to 40% of dementia cases could be prevented or even delayed by just targeting modifiable risk factors. And we're going to be talking more about that today. Also, our research suggests that combining multiple healthy factors may be the most impactful. So you're going to see various areas of concentration that will really provide us with the reasons why. What we've seen from the recent Lancet Commission report on dementia is that up to 40%, which is really dramatic, of dementia diagnoses could potentially be prevented or even delayed by targeting, as mentioned, some of the modifiable risk factors. So we're going to be talking about non-modifiable risk factors today, as well as modifiable risk factors. So when I talk about those risk factors, I want to remind everyone again, that it's really important that we concentrate on environmental factors, physical activity, cardiovascular health, healthy diet and nutrition, which we'll be talking about, as well as the importance of cognitive engagement and social stimulation. And based on the research that we're seeing at the Alzheimer's Association and that we're supporting in all the great research that we're doing in our laboratories, just in our metropolitan area, it's likely that combining multiple healthy factors will certainly provide us with a risk reduction lifestyle that may be the most impactful. So not just, again, targeting one of the factors that we're going to be talking about today. So what we're saying is that the strength of our data as it exists today leads us to believe that heart health is something that's very, very important, as is certainly, its correlation with brain health. So today we're going to be identifying how certain behaviors affect our brain as well as our physical body. We're going to be talking about strategies for healthy decision making. And what's really interesting is that Solange just showed, different types of programs to stop smoking. So we're going to be talking about the importance of, providing support for, habits that may not be the most beneficial for brain health. We're going to be talking about sleep patterns, We've been hearing a lot about that, certainly, in all, media report outs. The importance of mental health, which we're all pretty familiar with since we've been talking more about mental health since the pandemic. And of course, the importance of being physically active, whatever that may mean for you. We're going to be speaking about health and nutrition and making healthier choices as we prepare our meals. And of course, learning, how important learning is in everyday life, and social engagement. Being as active as possible in our community is really so important to overall risk reduction. So again, we're going to be talking about risk reduction strategies as well as preventative strategies. So just as a reminder, the brain controls everything that we do. It's controlling my speech at the moment, my movement of my hands, our ability to walk and talk, and so on. So it's very interesting because it's an area that we don't talk about or focus on as much as we should. We know that there are over 100 billion neurons that create this transmittal network. It's really our communication channels. And these signals that travel through, our brain form what we're thinking, how we're feeling, our ability to remember. And that's very important as we understand more about Alzheimer's and all related dementia, how it affects short-term memory as well as long-term memory. And we're also going to be speaking about how the fact that Alzheimer's disease does destroy our brain cells, and it's almost like neurodegenerative cell death. But, we don't leave it there because we know that we can grow new neurons. And that's important to realize. And how we do it is by adapting healthier lifestyle habits. Very interesting that we are more in control than we think we are. So in terms of the heart and the brain connectivity, we know more and more data is leading us to this hypothesis that the heart and the brain are interrelated. And what we do every single day to protect our heart can also help our brain function at its optimum. And that's really important. The brain needs blood flow and oxygen, just like our heart. And we know that at least 20 to 25% of the blood flow from every single heartbeat goes to our brain, so it feeds our brain. So what we're doing to be active, which is helping our cardiovascular health and our cardiometabolic health, right, is also helping our brain to be able to operate, to be more focused, to concentrate more, and to feel better, ultimately. So let's ask a question. Alzheimer's is a normal part of aging. We hear about that quite a bit, and I'm sure that you do as well. Do we believe it to be true, or do we believe it to be false? So what do we all think? You can put that in the chat. You can unmute if you'd like. And the answer is false. We know that Alzheimer's is not a normal part of aging. So if anyone were to say that to you, whether it be a healthcare provider, a healthcare professional, a neighbor, a friend, a care partner, or yourself, please know that Alzheimer's is a progressive and often could lead to be a fatal brain disease. And we know that symptoms usually develop very slowly, sometimes ignored for many years, and they do get worse over time. However, please know it's not a normal part of aging. And we're going to be talking more about that as we understand more about Alzheimer's and dementia. We know that dementia is this general term that describes difficulty with our thinking, our memory, that are truly severe enough to start to interfere with daily living. We know that Alzheimer's disease is the most common cause of dementia. It makes up about 60 to 75% of all diagnoses. We know today there's currently no cure. However, there are more, treatments and modalities, that have been, approved and available on market for symptom control. And now, just most recently, new, agents that have been approved that may help with the underlying pathophysiology of the disease. However, we know that regardless of what is happening in the clinical field, which is very important to understand, we also know that we can have control. And we understand more today how important healthier lifestyle habits and behaviors may help us all to lower that risk. So just going back to that statistic in the beginning, that 1 in 5 people have a lifetime risk for Alzheimer's at age 45 and 1 in 10 for men. This is something to certainly pay attention to. So let's talk about our story, right, of our overall health care. We know that there are genes that are non-modifiable, such as the ones that we inherit from family, right? Our genes, our heredity, we can't really do very much about it. Our age, our race, our ethnicity, right? All non-modifiable risk factors. We know that certain populations are more at risk. For example, Black and Hispanic populations are at least, 2 times as likely as white populations to develop a diagnosis of Alzheimer's and dementia. And we also know that Hispanic and Latinos are 1.5 times more likely, and those numbers are really underreported. But we do know that healthier lifestyle habits may be beneficial for overall brain as well as body health. We know environmental factors play a role. We're doing a lot of studies when it comes to our environment in terms of pollution and other factors as well. But we also know, and we're going to be talking about and focusing on today, lifestyle, right? Exactly what we were mentioning before. Being physically active, eating more healthfully, learning every single day. Adult learning is critically important to keeping that hippocampus, that front part of our brain, nice and opened, for short-term memory, abilities. We know how important it is to really socially engage. So again, we're going to be talking about the story of our own health and think about, the implications of what we're talking about as well. Next, please. So what's really interesting here is that at the Alzheimer's Association, we talk to families every single day. We provide care and support services, and we're always talking about the importance of being prepared for your clinical visit and what you need to prepare. It was very interesting. We had a program yesterday, and one of the community members said, well, how do I even know what to ask? What is it that I need to prepare for? So we always say, keep a journal of all of your signs and symptoms, any concern that you have or may have about memory loss. But when it comes to, certainly your numbers, right? Know your blood pressure. That's really so important. Know what's normal for you. Know within the range that you are supposed to be in, according to your medical history. And also what's very interesting is that the Alzheimer's Association is funding a study. It's called the Sprint Mind Study. And that particular study is taking a look at specifically the relationship between sustaining a normal blood pressure range for you and alleviating the onset of early diagnosis of mild cognitive impairment related to Alzheimer's and dementia. So we find that to be absolutely fascinating. So the Sprint Mind study finds that controlling BP, blood pressure, to 120 systolic, there is a decreased risk for developing mild cognitive impairment and dementia. So what may be good for your heart is going to be good for your brain. And we saw some of this evidence just recently from a report out of this study. And this is the first study that truly demonstrates that you could reduce new cases of cognitive impairment if you intensively control your blood pressure. So that really is quite interesting. And we could talk a little bit more about this study, but we're seeing the same thing with blood sugars, right? With your glucose level. You know what your normal range is, and if you don't know, do ask. Keep a journal as well of what your numbers are, or you could certainly get a report out of a summary of your visit. keeping your BP in order, keeping your blood pressure in order, keeping your weight and BMI within the range that's normal for you. And the same goes true with your triglycerides, with your cholesterol numbers, right? But we understand how important that is for overall brain health, just like it is for your cardiovascular and cardiometabolic health. So keep in mind the interconnectivity of each. So this is my favorite part. We're going to be talking about the science. And what the science tells us is that there are many different variables that increase our risk for heart disease and stroke. And of course, they also increase, as a result, our risk of cognitive decline and all forms of dementia. So when we're talking about hypertension, we're talking about what? We're talking about keeping our blood pressure within normal range, right? Diabetes, the same thing to do, with glucose, right? Obesity, keeping our weight within normal range. We understand how important good cholesterol is for the heart, but what's good for the heart is also good for the brain. And that's really, our messaging today. Whatever you're doing for your overall health care to maintain good heart health, good metabolic health, you're also protecting your brain, which is important to maintain those short-term memory, banks, as well as, obviously the trajectory and your risk levels for developing any type of cognitive impairment. So it's never too late and it's never too early to incorporate healthy habits. So I'll read that again. It's never too early or too late to incorporate healthy habits. Do we believe that to be true or false? It's definitely true. It's never too early and it's never too late. People of all ages can benefit from adding in more healthy behaviors. How many times have you read in the, in the news feeds about people that are in their hundreds, they're running marathons, they're walking, people and of all ages. Doesn't matter your lifestyle, everyone can incorporate healthier habits. But you have to have a plan and you have to have a schedule. And we're going to be talking a little bit more about some of those tools as we move forward. So what we're going to be talking about is the importance of getting quality sleep, whatever that may be for you. And, we just mentioned very briefly about being smoke-free, how important that truly is, because that does take up so much blood and oxygen in your system. It's really important that you work very hard to be able to be smoke-free. And of course, there are many different programs that Solange all through the Atlantic Health System mentioned about different types of programs to help you to do that. And of course, the importance of taking care of our mental health, right? We have to be mentally acute. We have to be positive. We have to learn different types of habits and behaviors and lifestyle changes that may help us to get to that point. It's a lot of work, right? We have to get moving. Whatever you're doing now, we're going to be talking about just doing a little bit more of that and scheduling that into everyday living. We're going to be talking about choosing healthier foods, how important that really is, getting rid of those processed foods, and the importance of learning, challenging ourselves, learning a new language, perhaps, taking more time to listen to audiobooks, going to a class, different ways that you can challenge yourself, right? And staying involved in community. Very, very important. Getting quality sleep. We know that sleep is essential for overall health and well-being. One of the neurologists that we work with at Rutgers University, who has just a beautiful Aging and Health Alliance program, does a lot of work with not only exercise, but also health and nutrition, also talks to us about sleep. And he's always saying that when you sleep, you get rid of that buildup of that amyloid plaque. It's almost like getting rid of the garbage, so to speak. And it's truly important to protect your overall, brain capacity. And we know that sleep impacts overall health throughout, all of our, physical and mental concerns. It affects our ability to maintain a healthy blood pressure. Sometimes your BP is up and your sugars are up because you're not sleeping. And we also know that inadequate sleep can cause problems with our thinking, right? Think about how you feel the next day. Can you really concentrate? Can you really handle those tasks? If you've only slept a couple hours here and there over, a periods of decades, that's an issue. And I'm sure it's affecting you. You may not know it's affecting you, but it's not only affecting you from a physical perspective, but it's also affecting you from a cognitive perspective. And that's really, what we're trying to, concentrate on today. So what do we say? We say that, let's think about what kind of environment helps me sleep. I mean, do we sleep with the lights on? Do we sleep with the lights off? Just making some changes. Do you sleep with the TV on? Do you watch TV during the night? Do you listen to music, or are you there with your phone, constantly listening to it buzz off? What changes might help me create a more peaceful sleep setting, And we always say to go to sleep, or to try to practice, a sleep habit that is routine, not just 5 days a week during the work week, but 7 days a week, right? And how can I minimize distractions? That's important, in terms of light, in terms of, just being able to relax and just release what happened over the course of the day. So what we say, and according to our research, is, look at the control temperature in your room, and the amount of light and what is preferred. We always say to turn off your screens before bed, help wind down and relax, whatever that may be for you, right? Have a cup of tea. Don't, drink or have, a heavy meal before bed. And always talk to your healthcare provider if you experience, frequent sleep problems, because that could be an issue with sleep apnea or some other conditions, as, I'm sure your healthcare provider can best, counsel you on. So when it comes to smoking, we always say, be smoke-free, because it certainly has a direct and negative impact on overall health for your brain, not just, your lungs, right? Your respiratory systems. That's important to recognize as well. What we know from the science is that our studies have found, and this is the Alzheimer's Association studies, have found that smoking increases our overall risk of cognitive decline and may increase our risk of developing mild cognitive impairment that may lead to Alzheimer's and all related dementia. In our research, we're saying that quitting smoking may help reduce a person's chance of this impairment, and it can actually be reduced down to the level of non-smokers. So think about someone that has stopped smoking and, 10 years later, their lungs are pretty clear. It's the same thinking, same hypothesis that we can reverse if we stop, our smoking habits that we are currently engaged within. So you have to think about what could help me to stop smoking or stay smoke-free. Like, what is it that you need? And I'm sure that AHS, through their programs, would be able to help. But other, community partners and organizations like the Alzheimer's Association can provide additional resources that are available online or in our community through, so many different healthcare organizations and health system, resources that we should all access, because we should not try and do this alone. And that's what we're talking about here. The Alzheimer's Association wants to continue to be your education partner to provide you with the information and the resources that are truly needed. So what we say is find support through Quitlines and the work that, certainly is being delivered by AHS. Talk with your healthcare provider or another healthcare professional about this. Don't be, shy about it. Bring it forward. Look for a smoking cessation program, as we just saw, or, find different strategies that work for you. Sometimes we have to try many different strategies in order to get comfortable with making that kind of lifestyle change, right? Now, this is an important conversation, our mental health. Think about how you feel currently. Are you feeling sad, Are you emotional? Are you, exaggerating, certain circumstances? It's really important to prioritize ourselves, which is very hard to do. I think we learned how to do it a little bit with self-care during the pandemic, but we have to continue. We have to take care of our mental health, just like our physical health. We have to pay attention to our stressors and any symptoms that we are exhibiting in terms of being anxious, being sad, moody, depressed, or any other concerns that we may have, because it does affect our overall health physically, but also our brain capacity. And many healthier habits can help us to contribute to good mental health. Feel, a little bit better about our day if we are physically more active, for example, if we stop smoking, as we just talked about. So taking care of our mental health, let's think about what tools do we need in our toolbox to do this? What are some things I enjoy doing? How can I build more breaks into my day? I always say to Tarina, take a break, right? Walk, make sure that you have your meals, have your snacks, be healthy, and focus on self-care, because we can't take care of anyone else if we don't take care of ourselves, right? It's that same, analogy that's always used on an airplane, right? Just make sure that you're safe so you can help the person next to you. So we have to really protect our time. And I always say, protected time is really so important every day. Make sure you take care of your own mental health. It could be just time away doing, your work activities or other kinds of, chores that you need to do. It may be taking a nap if you're a napper. It could be going for a nice walk, right? And it could be, dancing, right? How many people, go and they dance? That's not just for little kids anymore, right? It really is for everyone to just let loose, right? And relax a little bit. It could be singing a song to yourself, right? Listening to music is a wonderful connector between the mind, body, and spirit. And we talk to all of our families, no matter where they are in the journey of Alzheimer's disease, to be able to use music as part of their toolbox to help people not only reminisce, but to enjoy it, right? Bake a treat, some people love to bake or they like to cook, and you could bake for someone else, the neighbor, right? You can bring in cookies. You can do something that just gives you the sense of self-care and self, expression. You could read a book, you could listen to an audio tape, go to the library over the weekend, or you could just watch a funny show, a funny video, right? Good things to do for yourself. So think about what you do currently, what's working, what's not working, and how you can course correct, because that's just going to make you feel so much better with your overall health care. And please, chat with us and let us know what you're doing currently. So as we're moving the conversation to get moving, what kinds of physical activities can improve our brain health, right? What are we currently doing? What could we do a little bit more of? So what the science, tells us, and this is all from the Alzheimer's Association with funded studies, that consistent cardiovascular activity can reduce our risk of cognitive impairment. And that's important to understand. It may seem so simple, but just any type of cardiovascular activity, whether it be being on a bike, being on a treadmill, walking, any type of cardiovascular movement can help us with our overall cognitive acuity. Physical activity may directly benefit our brain cells, and it could really replace and generate, right? Regenerate our neurons that we just had talked about, and reduce other kinds of risk factors, because of course we understand that a person living with Alzheimer's may also be living with other chronic or acute conditions, right? Any type of physical activity just makes you feel better. And if you just pause for a moment, you realize that it really affects your mental health as well. If you're physically active, mentally, you're able to contribute more to yourself as well as to your loved ones. And we also understand for many, any increase in movement, people will realize has a direct impact on overall health care. And that's really what we're all striving for, right? As we age, we really need to keep our health in order. So let's, write down and add to our toolbox a listing of what activities do I want to try? What do I want to do that's different? Do I want to learn how to play tennis, for example, with the weather being nice? How can I build more physical activity in my day? How can I take a break and go for a walk after this class? And who can I ask to join me? And why is that? Because then you're getting that social engagement. And you may get also some cognitive engagement. There are many programs in townships now that have walking tours. And that's something that you may want to just, maybe look into. Does my township have a walking tour? Some of them actually have walking tours with healthcare providers and professionals, or it could be friends and neighbors. But when you ask someone else to join, what's going to happen? You're going to just have the time pass a little bit quicker. You're going to catch up socially. Maybe you could talk about, a cognitive, exercise that you just participated in, or a class you just took, or just talk about current events. It's really important. So we all have to find ways that might already be part of our everyday practice, but just add a little bit more to it, such as walking around our neighborhood, waving to our neighbors, right? Sometimes a smile and a wave goes a long way. Taking, the steps more often than an elevator or an escalator, or even getting off a bus stop earlier, just walking a little bit more. If you're driving and you're in a parking lot, maybe park a little bit further away safely, but that'll get more steps in before you get to that, big box store or a mall. Walk inside a mall, right? A lot of the malls open up earlier for walking tracks. So maybe something you want to participate in. Depending upon your lifestyle, you could start very small, but short activities add up, right? And then goal yourself every day. That's helpful. And try to have fun. Ask your friends, your family members, your colleagues, neighbors to join you. Again, it just makes it more, of a pleasing, environmental time that you spend together. And that's really important because you're securing that time. So, we could pause for a moment and just have you write down some ideas that you could share with others on this class. I think it's really important because what we're looking at here is maybe lifestyle practices that you do already, but what we hope that you'll recognize is how important that is for overall cognition. And that's really what we're trying to preserve, right? So think about, what tools do I need? What more do I need in my toolbox? What external help do I need? What resources might be helpful? What do I do now? And what could I start today? Never too late, never too early. So when we turn our conversation over to this lovely salad that these ladies are preparing, right, we're thinking about healthier lifestyle habits and how important it is to eat an overall healthier diet. However, we know that it may, reduce our risk of many diseases or help us with a certain treatment, management plan that we're currently on. But what's also very important is what the science is really showing us. And again, it comes back to that old conversation. And I say that because we've been talking about it for many years. What's good for the heart is also good for the brain. But now we've got the data that's saying that 40% risk reduction if we practice all of these healthier lifestyle habits, conglomerately together, right? That's what's really important. So we know that nutritious food is fuel for our brain just as much as it is for other conditions, right? Or to just obviously to survive. And we know that eating a more balanced diet can also, through our data, reduce our risk of cardiovascular disease, which everyone wants to do, right? Certainly diabetes, perhaps forms of cancer, perhaps Parkinson's disease, and that's what we're seeing in our data, Alzheimer's disease and stroke. And that's really important to recognize. You can, and we'll be talking about different ideas here. You may already do this, but what is important to recognize is how truly important this is for cognition. And that's really what you're trying to preserve, right? So let's talk about examples of a balanced nutritional diet. You may have heard of the DASH diet, which stands for Dietary Approaches to Stopping Hypertension. I remember we were talking about that with our BP earlier, right? Keeping it within normal range for us, how important that truly is. But not just your BP, you're now talking about dietary lifestyle habits. Also the Mediterranean diet, right? So when we talked before about the Sprint Mind study, we're talking about the compilation of your BP, keeping that within normal range, and practicing better, balanced diet habits. So truly what this means is that we're talking about adding more fruits and vegetables into everyday meals and snacks. So think about what you already had for breakfast, how many fruits that you added into your cereal, for example. Think about, what veggies you're going to add into your, salad that these ladies were starting to prepare for lunch, or adding it to your sandwich or other types of lunch, items that you're preparing now. Think about, the nuts, the beans, the whole grains, that you are choosing every day, staying away from, like white bread, for example, choosing whole grain bread, choosing, different types of whole grain choices. Of course, leaner meats, choosing, leaner fish, if you so choose, and certainly leaner poultry, and using more healthier fats. That's really important, staying away from those, polyunsaturated fats, and really adding in, olive oils and different types of healthier fats, into your everyday preparation of your meals and your enjoyment. And of course, limiting sugar and salt, truly important. We always talk about salt as it relates to hypertension, but all of this coming together really makes us healthier, and it makes our brain healthier, which is important to talk about today. So when you think about your meals, do you prepare your meals on a weekly basis, on a daily basis? What do you do now? What can you do differently? So how can I cook differently, or prepare my meals differently, or make different, healthier choices? That's important to recognize. What healthy foods can I swap in to my meals? And what new foods am I willing to try? So I would also say that many of the supermarkets today, they have registered dietitians available that could actually, free, I know the ShopRite does, in some communities, they will actually meet with you and they can walk you through the supermarket. And to me, that's extremely helpful. If you've never done that before, it's something to consider, especially when you're having a little difficult time reading food labels, or you don't know how to maintain a healthier diet in accordance with your own health plan. They could be very helpful. It's very confusing to know what's healthy, what's not healthy, right? Even at the healthier food markets that they have now, right? But if you take the time, instead of rushing, and prepare ahead of time, it will certainly be extremely helpful. So think about that. So when we're talking about tips for healthier eating, we're talking about using more olive oil, or another type of healthy oil of our choice instead of using butter or margarine, using more spices or flavorings instead of salt, and getting used to that. And of course, it all depends upon how you lived earlier in your life, right? Because you continue with those habits usually later on. We need to focus on what you can add in, such as more fruits and veggies, instead of what to take away. And that'll make us feel better as well, right? Instead of taking away, we're adding on. When we talk about, what we grew up on, we know that there's a report that came out many years ago, probably the last 5 years, by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. And they found that you are as healthy as your zip code, like where you grew up. Access to food security, access to transportation services, access to healthcare, to, communities, and so on, But they also talk about, continuing those habits that we learned early in life instead of trying something new that could be a little bit healthier. So we have to talk a little bit about that whole, framework that we're speaking about and educating on today, about bringing all of these healthier habits into everyday practice. So we want to build more of our meal choices around using more veggies, more beans, more whole grains, and of course, choosing leaner cuts of meat. Whatever your lifestyle is, there's so many different diets that people practice today. But just being more conscious of how important that is to your overall health. And as we're going into the weekend, it's always a good time to do that. As we're ending a month and entering spring, as we did this week, we're also, a little bit more cognizant about healthier lifestyle. Just to mention about vitamins and supplements, we know through the Alzheimer's Association that our work with the World Health Organization tells us back in 2019 that vitamins and supplements should not be recommended to reduce our risk of cognitive decline and dementia. So if you are certainly taking vitamins and supplements, we always urge you to speak with your healthcare professional, your provider. And please don't forget about your local retail pharmacist who is there behind the counter waiting to consult with you. So you could always ask about different vitamins and supplements. However, keep in mind that the World Health Organization, along with the Alzheimer's Association, has concluded through the data that vitamins and supplements should not be recommended to reduce our risk of cognitive decline and dementia, just to reinforce that. Be aware of potential false claims. You know what they say, what's good to be true? What do we say, right? What's good to be true, is probably not true. We need to focus on balanced nutrition to promote healthy brain, as well as our overall physical well-being. Always talk with your healthcare provider, your PCP, your internist, your specialist about any concerns of nutritional deficiencies. If you're losing weight, you're gaining weight, you're concerned about how do I follow a healthy diet? A lot of health systems and other types of healthcare professionals, they really are very, very informative, and they really help to develop your own nutritional plan of how you can be, certainly, healthy from a dietary standpoint. Now let's talk about challenging our brains. And, do we believe this to be true or false? Challenging your brain may help lower the risk of cognitive decline. I would say it's true, right? Continuing to challenge our minds as we age may lower our risk of cognitive decline. You don't necessarily have to learn how to play chess, but wouldn't it be fun to do, right? I think it's so important to learn every single day. As an educator, I like to challenge myself, and we urge everyone in community to challenge yourself. And it might have not just long-term benefit for cognitive health, but short-term as well. Think about going to a community college, taking a class, learning a new language, right? Learning bridge, mahjong, canasta, any type of game or relearning, right? That's really important. When you learn, your world opens up and you experience so much. You could really just, see more, experience more, and just, certainly benefit from a cognition standpoint. So when we talk about cognitive engagement, what are we truly talking about? It's a term that we use in the Alzheimer's Association because it truly is a term that's so meaningful. It keeps our minds active and challenged. As we said, we could be learning new skills, working on something that's really challenging, or engaging in any type of ongoing learning, I mean, if you're a parent, sometimes you could pick up, a kid's, school book and relearn history, right? Maybe there are books or biographies, autobiographies that you want to learn more about, or you want to revisit, or any point in science or medicine or history or whatever, travel, whatever, provides that ability to continue to learn and experience. There are so many sources that are online as well as, in the library to take advantage of. And we know that keeping our minds active forms those new connections among the brain cells, that generation of new neurons, very important, right? As well as encourages that blood flow. Mentally stimulating activities maintain or improve our cognitive health. That's what we've been talking about today. And we found that engaging in formal education keeps our brains healthier and can provide protection against developing mild cognitive impairment or any form of dementia. So what does formal education mean? It could be going to a class, as we're saying here, learning a new hobby or a new skill. Maybe we want to learn, how to cook, right? Maybe we don't know how to do, certain dishes, right? We can go to a cooking school. We can go to a cooking school at the local high school, perhaps, that are open to adult learning education. And you have to think about in your toolbox, what are you going to place in there of the activities for you that sound like a fun challenge? And what topics would I like to learn more about? So tips to challenging ourselves, we're saying take a class at a local college or community center on a new topic or skill. And when was the last time that we all, went to our own community center or a local college and just took a look at the syllabus and see what it is that would be more interesting? We could try a new cooking technique. We could learn a new language, right? We could build a piece of furniture. Now that's always challenging, right? Have you ever tried that lately? Right? Or learn how to play a new strategy game, right? Like chess or anything, of that nature. You could go and learn how to play basketball. I'm just thinking about, sports or any types of activities. It's really important. It does help us tremendously. And don't forget about the YouTube channel and things that are available on our, cable stations, because a lot of the history and science channels are very educational in nature. So whatever it is, learn something new. And I always say that when you're in the library, go to a different section of the library so that you're not going to like the same collection of books and history, and really challenge yourself or form a book club, right? Or certainly, join a different type of journaling club or writers club or what have you. The important thing that we're talking about here is staying connected, right? Connecting with others socially can have so many health benefits, right? We don't like to have our meals alone. We like to have our meals with other people, right? And what the science tells us is staying socially active may support brain health. And during the pandemic, we learned through one particular study that if people just received 1 or 2 phone calls a week, how much better their overall temperament was because they stayed socially engaged. They shared what they wanted to share. They learned how best to communicate, because if you don't communicate, what happens? Your communication skills atrophy. That's important to realize. If you're not talking, you're not out there in community, or you're not participating in virtual programming and other types of, Facebook visits with friends and family, or just being on the phone, it really does affect your communication skills. And we need to keep those as sharp as possible. We know that socially, staying engaged is associated with our living longer, with fewer physical and mental health disabilities. And those who feel well connected tend to make healthier lifestyle choices in other areas. So it expands out, which is really important. So in our toolbox, we're saying stay connected. So think about, how do I like to stay connected to others? Do we call our siblings, our family members, our children, our friends? How often do we call them? How often do we get involved with community? Are there any clubs or groups that I'd like to join? That's important as well. What do I want to get involved in? What's available in my community? When you go to the senior center, you go to senior services in your community, there is an abundance of programs. We talked about a walking tour before. They have clubs, groups, committee meetings, different communities that engage with one another. That really is so important to know and give everything a try. Maybe you want to learn, computer skills, right? But you can do it with others at the same time, staying socially connected as well as cognitively connected. Volunteer for the Alzheimer's Association or another cause that's truly important and meaningful and you have the passion for. We're always looking for volunteers. We're not alone with that. Every organization is looking for volunteers to help them. And I think that that type of work is so fulfilling. And it's really important to think about. Schedule regular phone calls or, as we said before, video chats, right? To keep in touch. Visit with your friends and family, even if you don't want to go somewhere. Sometimes if you go, you feel so much better, right? Sometimes you're hesitant to go for other reasons, but that just places us where we are today. We need to move forward and participate in events in our community. That's really important too, staying connected. So you can live a healthier lifestyle that's going to benefit your brain and body by really practicing, the areas that we talked about today. When you open up a toolbox and you look at what do I have to lean on, we know that, if we have issues with sleep, there are sleep programs. We can talk to our health care professional. The same thing with stopping, a smoking habit. Taking care of your mental health is everything. And we're hearing so much more about that, but sometimes it's very difficult to know what do I do next? How do I get into a place of self-care and, mental health, practices that are beneficial for me? Get moving, because any type of physical exercise is so important to keep everything going, right? What's good for the heart is good for the brain. Eat more healthy, that's important too, and seek the advice of a dietitian, a nutritionist, or resources online through Atlantic Health System, through your own health system, through the Alzheimer's Association, and think about challenging ourselves. What's interesting to you? Do you want to learn how to knit, to crochet? Are there, just wonderful, experiences that you haven't explored yet? What is it that I can do to challenge myself, and stay connected? That's very important because isolation atrophies our communication abilities. So let's talk about the Alzheimer's Association for a moment. I wanted to remind everyone of these three very important assets. One is our 24/7 helpline, 800-272-3900. It is available in every single state across the United States. We know how important it is for long distance caregivers to be able to rely on the Alzheimer's Association in the state where their loved ones may be residing. We speak in over 200 different dialects. We can provide information, education, and resources, always answered by a dementia care specialist, a person, a live person, no technology. That technology is not used by the Alzheimer's Association. And what's important here is that if you want to be connected to your local chapter, our chapter is the Greater New Jersey chapter of the Alzheimer's Association. We have programs such as this program today. We have so many different resources for people living with Alzheimer's, programs for early stage, people living with Alzheimer's and dementia and their care partners. We certainly have community awareness activities to get involved in, or maybe you just would like to have a care consultation. And certainly we provide one-on-one care consultation services or family meetings as well. Again, we have caregiver support groups. Many of our programs are hybrid, in-person, virtual, and we're there to service you 24/7. Our online resources at alz.org has a plethora of different portals for the person living with Alzheimer's and dementia, care partners, neighbors, friends. ALZ Navigator is an updated tool that will present you with a care plan about issues such as driving, how do I find a healthcare professional, how do I find an elder lawyer, different types of, care plans that could be personalized confidentially for you. We have many different portals on research, and we just talked about, some of our research findings today. If you're interested, alz.org/research. And we also have Trial Match, a listing of over 360 trials that are open and active just on our site, specifically for Alzheimer's and dementia. We also have a Community Resource Finder portal, which is an externally facing portal. You can go online in the area that you'd like to certainly learn more about. For example, education programs, you can put in your zip code for programs and services. It is a program that is co-powered with AARP, has a listing of AARP events and programs and services as well. If you're looking for a program in your community, you put in your zip code, all the programs will populate. If you're looking for a neurologist in your community, medical options, in-home care, healthcare, listings of other types of specialists and professionals that are dedicated to supporting the person on the journey of Alzheimer's and dementia. It's a wonderful resource. And if you're having any difficulty, the best advice that we can give today is to call our helpline. They are truly just a wonderful resource for all services provided by the Alzheimer's Association. So with that, I think that we have just about a few minutes for any questions.
We thank you for joining us, and we only ask you a few minutes to, after this presentation, to complete the survey. The link is in the chat for your convenience.
Wonderful.
So thank you, Robin, Serena, for your time and expertise today. If you have any question or any comments, please send an email to us or call at 1-844-472-8499. And that concludes our webinar. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Solange.
Thank you so very much.